welcome to the policy meeting, the Board of Education policy meeting on Monday, January 12th. We're going to call to order.
Nope.
Okay, then I will open it for public comment. I'm not seeing any. Bonnie, did you have anything? Okay. Moving on to approval of minutes from December 15th. I didn't have any adjustments. Molly, anything?
No.
Okay, can I get a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion to approve December 15th minutes?
I will second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Those are approved. And straight into our discussion. So we have some policies left over from the last meeting that we just had to go through. Many of these are just updates. There's some that we might have to talk about a little bit more, or a couple questions to answer here or there. So we'll just kind of go through there and go through these and discuss all of the changes. So the first item is policy 480, accounting and audits. So this one is updated, and there's an optional inclusion of a sentence to support the auditor's compliance with its filing requirement under one of the state laws. So I don't know, do we feel like we need to include that sentence, or actually we did talk on this last time, right?
Yeah,
we were just gonna bring something.
Yeah, we talked about it a little bit, and we've talked about it a little more since the last meeting, so thanks for giving us some time. We talked with our auditors. Our recommendation at the moment would be to not include this, not adopt this optional sentence. You know, as you know, the board technically adopted our most recent audit at the last meeting, 2 months late, and that's just the nature of how this works right now. So you know, it's speaking with our auditor and some of the challenges they're facing with you know, communication with ISBE and whatnot. You know, they would love to be able to be done by October 15th each year, and we certainly want them to be, but I'd hate to find us in a position where we put something in policy knowing that we will not achieve that.
Right.
And since this is not required, I think our recommendation would be to leave this optional sentence out for now.
I'm in favor of leaving that out. I think we have the option to change that at a later time if we feel like it's not, the timing we are able to meet isn't fitting our other needs for the district, but right now we seem to have a good sequence.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Okay, great. So then item 2, policy 660. So this was the curriculum content question. So we did discuss this one at the last meeting, and then we were going to revisit this one and have some further discussions. So Dr. Barrett, did you want to share anything about that one?
Sure. I think I'd share a few things. First, I would just note there is one, I'm trying to get to it here for us to take a look at, one optional sentence
yes.
in here, and remember we talked a little bit about this, about should we add language about including the Irish famine.
Yes.
And as I said preliminarily, and I think in additional follow-up conversations on our end, I would reinforce as kind of a rule, we would advocate not including that, just if it's optional, and this is already one of the largest policies with the most mandates that we have the hardest time getting all of the things in, why would we add something else that we have to, you know, would potentially have to be audited for and whatnot. It's not that we would be saying this isn't an important issue, and it's actually certainly addressed in a couple places. But at the high school and well, certainly at the high school and potentially a little bit at the middle school, but we would just say if it's not required, don't include it. So that's our first kind of note or recommendation here. If that's okay with you, you guys?
That works fine for me.
And then I think, and Mrs. Sims is with us in the audience if she wants to jump in and speak up on anything. but you'll recall a lot of what was included here was information about health standards. And we do recognize and see that we'll have to figure out how all of this is included, but some of that's going to take a little time working with our teachers and our committee. So I know even since we last met, Mrs. Sims and Mr. Pitmessis have met with middle school admins about some of the middle school health things and how we can fit some of that into the middle school. But I think some of the even more significant conversations will be with some of our elementary peeps, and about how we're going to make sure we're covering some of these topics that in some cases could seem pretty heavy, like for example this item 3 here, drug and alcohol abuse in grades K through 4.
Right.
And so, you know, what we're going to end up needing to do here as we get through the rest of this year and get into next year is start looking at what we already have in terms of our second step curriculum, in terms of some of the texts that we already have included that talk about making healthy choices and making good choices and taking care of yourself and your body and respecting others and things like that. And our understanding is that, at least at this point, and again, Shawnette, correct me if I'm wrong, but I do think we'll have enough leeway when audit time comes from the state that they recognize that these could potentially be sensitive. Some of these topics could be sensitive, and they'll give districts the discretion to, you know, like making healthy choices and whatnot would qualify in some of these grades for covering some of these concepts.
I agree. I think that's what's going to fall under that age and developmental appropriateness.
Do we know, is there anything, any company that has already created a curriculum around these types of topics for this age group?
Good question.
Yeah, that's a good question. In terms of actually something that's already packaged, not that we've been able to find in our cursory look since this policy, was presented to us, but we did speak, or at least share with our representatives that do mutual ground, faith law, things like that, just to see if, they have, at least if they have anything, or if not, if it's on their radar. Because some of these topics, our staff might also be more comfortable if it's an outside entity that's sharing the information.
Yeah, I would almost think of it as like an add-on to our social emotional learning curriculum, like all of those that we would do. Like if those companies offered something to say, and you could have this as well. So potentially, maybe not right now, but potentially in the future, if because I know that those curriculum companies often will respond to needs.
Yeah, they're usually responsive to what gets passed in the legislature.
Right.
So, I mean, I think we recognize, other than the Irish famine language, which we would say don't adopt, obviously the rest of this language adopt and move forward, and just with the board knowing there's still work ahead on, our part to figure out exactly where all of this fits in. And we're not alone, right? Every school district in the state is going to be working to figure out some of these things, because this is some of these are sensitive, these are sensitive topics everywhere that we're going to have to figure out. So
yeah, and I just think that this one would be great to revisit as we figure that out or come to a conclusion. And it might be this is what we're doing now, and we're going to continue to develop this, whatever that might look like.
Yep.
Because we have a lot of great curriculum conversations, so
yep.
we can add this.
Good call.
Them.
I'll take that note. Okay.
Okay, great. So then policy, or item 3, policy 6130, program for acceleration and enrichment. So that one's updated. So I think there were just a couple things in there. The superintendent or designee may implement an educational program for gifted and talented learners that will change and motivate academically advanced learners, engage them in appropriately differentiated learning experiences to develop their unique abilities. So that change didn't seem to adjust anything with what we're already doing.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the impetus for this change was actually, but it, our program still aligns with all of this.
Yeah, it
So,
seemed pretty standard.
yeah,
like,
for sure.
Okay, so that one's good. So then we're policy 6160, English language learners, and that one looked like just a couple of small verbiage changes within that. Nothing that I could see that was big at all
Correct.
there. Okay. Item 5, policy 6210, instructional materials. So that one was updated, and I believe there's a required question. Oh, yep, it's up on the board there.
Yep.
So a board that does not have the capacity or desire to approve all instructional materials may use the following alternative. The superintendent or designee shall recommend to the board for consideration and adoption all textbooks and primary instructional materials according to the standards described in the policy. The superintendent shall approve the selection of all other instructional materials. So as of right now, we're just approving all curriculum changes.
Yeah, so this one, I think this is maybe worth a little conversation here.
Okay.
I think this is a little interesting because technically what we're doing right now is the board, and I think it's this key language, all textbooks and primary instructional materials. Right now, the board approves all of those things. You know, every spring, the Department of Learning and Teaching will come forward with a list of resources, and we'll put them on display and do all of that. And so right now, that's the process we have in place, and the board technically approves all of that. I do think there has been some conversation at the board table over time about sometimes that feels a little perfunctory because by the time it comes to you, a committee of teachers has spent, 3 years looking at something and is recommending X or Y resource, and as a board, you're like, are we really going to not approve something that a group of teachers has, vetted over the course of the last several years? But it is still, ultimately your responsibility. I think the other thing to think about is that there is some gray in this, and always has been, because of what you consider a primary instructional resource, right? So kind of our philosophy and understanding has always been, and I sat in Shaunette's chair before this. Our kind of philosophy on this has always been anything that is basically a required common experience for all kids in a certain level or course is something we would consider a primary instructional resource. So that's generally limited to the big things like a full reading curriculum or a full science curriculum or the textbook for a particular course that every kid in that course is going to take. That being said, there are a lot of very important instructional materials and resources that teachers use that I think it's important to at least be explicit do not come to this table.
Right.
Because teachers are empowered to work in their PLCs and their committees, and teachers also have a lot of autonomy within their specific classrooms to say, pick this particular novel as a read aloud or something like that. So I think you certainly could go either way. I think from where I sit, what we have been doing has been working. And I would say keep the existing language where the board, the superintendent or designee recommends to the board, and the board ultimately, has that vote and follows that statutory process. I don't think you need to make a change that says just the superintendent approves. But I just want to make sure that we're kind of being transparent about what that actually means.
Right. Yeah, I feel keeping it as it is makes the most sense with how the board's been operating. And although I don't think we've ever not approved a book, it has created some conversations when those come up, and I think we've always landed on approving those books, but it helps us understand sometimes what the community questions might be around those books, and then we've had further presentations. And I know that can still happen, but the vote on it does carry more weight to make us really consider those books.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, I think you're right. I think over the years, a lot of interesting conversations have happened because those things come here. And that's why I would say I'd hate to see it change, because I do think it at least is the impetus for some conversation. I mean, I think we had a presentation.
Yeah.
We've had some good presentations that came out of some of those things. So I would hate to see that opportunity go away.
Yeah, and I think it's also nice to know that there is this option if a need changes for whatever reason. So we could always, and I think we've shown that in previous policies, like maybe we need to revisit that and take the option that the policy gives.
Yep.
So,
That works for me.
is that good for you, Molly?
Yeah, I think it just boils down to, number one, the question at hand is if we don't have the capacity or the desire.
Yeah.
We do have the capacity, we do have the
Correct.
desire. And like referring to votes in the past, that we may have passed them, they have not all been unanimous. So I think that's
Right.
speaks to the
Important
desire.
have,
Yes.
Yeah. Yep.
Good point. And I can see being in a district trying to do that in CPS,
Right.
you know,
Right.
or something like that.
It's
I can
different.
see why that would be different. But yeah, the way you said that is exactly right. We clearly do have the capacity, and the vote history shows we have the desire too. So yeah, keep it up.
Okay, so we'll do the default no on that one. Okay, so then we are at item 6, policy 6210, student use of personal electronic devices. Let me just find my notes on that one.
This is really only a legal
Yeah,
reference.
legal reference is updated. That's all I have. So no changes there.
You know.
Item 7, policy 6260, complaints about curriculum, instructional materials, and programs. So that one is just updated. Outline steps that parents can take if they have a concern or a question or a complaint about curriculum.
Yep.
No questions on that one. Okay, item 8, policy 6280, grading and promotion. This one's just review and monitoring, so no changes. It's just something that's suggested that we review, because we're supposed to review all the policies within a certain amount of time. Any questions or notes about this one that's important? I didn't see anything
No,
that
I
really
didn't
jumped out
either.
at me.
I didn't either.
Okay. Item 9, policy 6300, graduation requirements. That one's updated. So this one, and what I had noticed was that it took out the requirement to learn how to vote. And I think that was because it was added in somewhere else, if I understood that
Yeah,
correctly.
that's
Is that how?
That's correct.
Because I think it might have been, was it added into that curriculum policy that we just saw?
Oh, yeah, where it was, I don't want to speak out of turn,
okay,
but I know
so-
it was added.
But it was added
It was
in,
added somewhere.
because I had some concern when I saw it taken
Yeah.
out, so then I had dug in and it was added in later. And then there's some other updates around that topic,
Yep.
about the voting topics.
Yep. And what is the other update in there is about
I think,
patriotism and display of the
Patriotism.
flag and stuff like that, and
Yeah.
that's certainly included in U.S. history and
mhm.
in middle school social studies, and so
Yeah, we're already
we're
doing that.
good in that for sure.
Okay. Item 10, policy 6310, high school credit for non-district experiences, course substitutions, re-entering students. So that one's updated in response to a law change that was amended. It deletes a provision and then kind of changed what's allowed, I think, a little bit of the tech programs
Yeah.
for high school students.
Mhm.
So I didn't have any questions on that one. Okay. Item 11, policy 6315, high school credit for students. Students in 7th or 8th grade. This one was just updated. I didn't have any big questions or big changes on that one. I think there were some laws that changed that impacted that one, but I didn't see anything
Correct.
big on that one either.
Nope, this is just about, and I think we've talked a little bit about this in the past. Some districts have talked about this, and it can kind of go either way, but this is about how kids could get high school credit for a course taken at the middle school level. Generally, that is something that happens here in limited circumstances. So we do already do this in some capacity. And this just kind of gives us a little more flexibility if we wanted to do something a little bit different. But for now, I think, Shawnette, right, we're just going with what we're doing currently. Right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
So those students would still attend at the high school to earn that high school credit.
And then if it were like a language class, well, they wouldn't earn credit. They just are taking a high school level class essentially, right? Like a Spanish or a French or
Correct.
something.
They take Spanish 1. That's just a middle school.
That's just
course,
a middle
and
school
then they would
course.
start with Spanish 2, earning credit at the high school.
Still
Okay.
counts as a prerequisite.
Prerequisite, but you're
courses.
not getting credit for it. But if we're having a 8th grader take geometry honors, they would come to the high school and then they would receive credit for
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay, I'm understanding that difference there. Okay. Item 12, policy 6320, high school credit for proficiency. This was updated in response to a law change that was just amended a little bit, allowing students to choose 1 year of career and technical education to meet a high school graduation requirement.
Mhm.
So hopefully that just helps students and
Hopefully.
yeah. Item 13, policy 7130, equal educational opportunities. This again was updated in response to a law change prohibiting districts from taking any action that would deny a child free public education based on the child or their parents or guardians' perceived citizenship or immigration status. So I don't see any changes for us with that, but
Nope.
we have that there. Item 14, policy 770, attendance and truancy. So again, this was updated in response to a law change requiring approval process for students to attend allowable activities by the beginning of the 2026-27 school year. So, and then it describes like those allowable activities. So that just seems to go into describe like or categorize absences a little bit more.
Mm-hmm. And I would guess, as we've talked about before, many of these policy changes we see tend to come out of,
A problem somewhere.
yes, a problem somewhere, right? Where someone wasn't, as an example, a process for allowing kids to make up work that they're not penalized for. Obviously, our teachers do so much,
Right.
and have so many practices in place to allow kids to make up work. So I would guess this came out of one place where that was not happening, unfortunately. And then it turns into a law, which makes its way into policy.
Yeah. Okay, then item 15, policy 7150, agency and law enforcement requests. So this one was rewritten, and there's a big explanation on why this was, why this was rewritten or what was rewritten as part of this. Dr. Barrett, do you have any thoughts on impact to the district on this one, or what this might look like for us, or this falls in line with our current policy?
Yeah, I think it generally falls in line with our current practices. I mean, we already have a really sound relationship with our local law enforcement officials. Was just emailing with one right before this meeting, actually. So, that's a good relationship and an established relationship we have. And you also probably know that over the course of the last several years, there's kind of two things to address here quick. One is kind of the role that law enforcement has been able to play in schools has changed pretty significantly, and so we've been working with the local police department and our school resource officer to work through that, and I think we've done well, and we're going to continue to have some of those conversations as we have some transitions in that resource officer role. And then the other thing is just to note that our schools are a safe place, and anybody who you can't just come in and talk to a kid at a school. And we have processes in place, and always have had processes in place. If somebody was going to come and try to talk to a kid at school, or we have all sorts of processes in place to address that. So those are in place regardless of this policy being here, and everything that we have in place aligns to this.
And so where it says that we have to have establish a policy by 7/1/2026, is that in adopting this policy, are we establishing that as our policy? That would cover that need.
This basically then outlines this acknowledges that we have those procedures in place.
Okay.
Right? That,
It would just, okay.
Yeah.
Just to be certain there.
Yep.
Okay.
Good question.
I have no other questions on that one. We good there? Okay, so then, item 16, policy 7180, prevention of and response to bullying, intimidation, and harassment. This one was updated, so they added some language about AI, cyberbullying, digital replicas. So it seems like kind of bringing that policy into the moment and some of the things that we may be seeing with bullying and ways that bullying might be happening given new technologies. That's what I took away from this one.
100% right.
Okay, no questions on that one. Item 17, policy 7190, student behavior. So this one was updated. Sorry, I'm just looking at my notes here of what the update was. So this one is about like if the school becomes aware of any person in possession of a firearm on school grounds, or becomes aware of any threat of gun violence on school grounds, and kind of talks through that, and what our policy is in regards to that.
Yeah. Again, perfect example of something that we obviously have in place.
Yeah.
That generally seems like common sense, but real things have happened in the real world that have, indicated we need to be explicit that that's an expectation.
Yeah.
So, that's all that is there, I think.
Okay. Item 18, policy 7290, suicide and depression awareness and prevention. So this was updated in response to a law that was updated requiring districts to insert the same contact information for suicide prevention helplines required for student ID cards on employee ID cards for grades 6 through 12. So it just is about including that information in more places, which I think.
And that's already there, actually.
Oh, okay. That's already all there. So we're already.
Mrs.
I know. I
Sims,
was
right.
Is
Right?
that on the back of the ID?
We
Yes.
include that on the student IDs, right?
The suicide
The
prevention.
suicide-
Yes,
There.
that is on the back of their IDs.
Okay. Perfect. Okay, item 19, restrictions on publications in K through 8 schools. This was just updated because of legal references being updated, so no big changes there. And then item 20, policy 7315, restrictions on publications in high schools. That's the same, just applies to high schools instead of K through 8.
Makes me think of my days writing for the Red and Blue in the high school newspaper.
Item 21, policy 7340, student records. Let me see. So that one was updated just to match the Illinois School Student Records Act.
Yeah, just changed the title. Sometimes you wonder
Yeah.
where that comes from, but
Some paralegal, some caught
right,
it.
caught it. Exactly.
Item 22, policy 830, visitors to and conduct on school property. This is updated for continuous improvement. Some legal references are updated, and it looks like maybe a law change or a slight law change that updated it as well.
Just title mostly.
Okay, well then, that's all of the policies. We just have one more item, which is item 23, the 2026-2027 policy committee meeting calendar. It looks like it stays in line for what we have been doing. I didn't see any changes. We just updated that as we finished our board calendar, now that we have our school calendar finalized.
Yep.
So, Molly, any questions or concerns with the calendar? Okay. I didn't have any either.
And I think I just want to make sure, maybe Bonnie can give me a quick nod. This continues to reflect the change that we made earlier this year where we flipped policy and finance, where now policy will be at the first meeting of the month.
Yeah.
Right.
It looked like that. And then a couple of them are an earlier start time because it's when we only have one meeting a month.
Yeah.
That's otherwise 6 p.m. start time.
And we'll
We have.
continue to be flexible with
Right.
that as we have
Yeah.
been over the course of the year, because sometimes we don't have new policies or whatever the case may be.
Right, yeah. New policies, or sometimes we have extra policies that we're
Yes,
doing.
yes, exactly.
You never know.
Exactly.
Okay, so then item 5, information. I don't have any additional information right now. I think we're all caught up on the new policy updates that came out, and I'm sure there's a new batch getting ready to roll out before we know it. But this should help us get through that. Any other information? No. Okay.
I got nothing.
Item 6, outstanding policy cleanup and review. I think we've done a lot of that, so we should be good. Okay, well then I will adjourn the meeting. Thank you.
We need a
Oh, a second, sorry. Or a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Second.
all in favor.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
All in